Welcome back. We all know what this is about, don't we? It's the Ducati. The thumbnail gives it away, I think. If you haven't watched part one, you're going to need to go and watch that, otherwise you're going to be flying a bit blind here. First things third, thank you so much to everybody that messaged me in the week about this bike. I haven't had the opportunity to get back to most of you. I do apologise, but I do appreciate the hive mind, I really do. So I've got half a plan, and it is only half a plan. From all the comments I received, the common thread through all of them were air gap on the ignition pickup, power cable to the starter, an earth strap to the back of the engine, and what else was there? I've got a list somewhere which I haven't got in front of me, which is a bit silly. Earth to the ECU on the left hand side, I think somebody said, at the front. There were some common things that were brought up, so I'm definitely going to dive into those. This video is likely, although I do like to waffle, is likely going to be a short one, because technically I haven't got time to work on this at the moment, but I haven't got a video for this week. I've got lots of things part filmed, but I haven't got a whole video. So I figure if we have a poke and a prod of this bike a little bit, gather some more information, fill in some of those pieces of the diagnostic jigsaw that I talk about, then the hive mind might be able to go again and shed more light and help me. So that's my plan. I've got basically about an hour spare today between two jobs, so I've got this thing back out. I'm gonna just try and do some, you know, I talk about my diagnostic jigsaw, waffle inbound. I've spoke about this in the past. We're building out this jigsaw to try and understand what's going on, and the corner pieces are compression, spark. What was the other corner piece? Fucking hell, Jim. Tea will help my brain. Trying very hard to not make swallowy noises. Corners of the jigsaw. Compression, as in mechanical nuss. Ignition system, as in spark. Fuel system. And then I decided, didn't I, that the other piece of that jigsaw should be accurate service information. I know that sounds a bit wonky. And then you build in from there. So you might have compression, but have you got the valve timing correct, etc. You might have a spark. Is it strong enough? Is it at the right time? Does it spark inside the combustion chamber? And you can do all these tests and build this jigsaw picture in. So I'm going to start pecking away at it and trying to fill in some of these pieces to try and get a better understanding of what's going on. Now, for those of you, if you haven't bothered to go back and watch part one and you don't know what's going on, this bike, you should really go back and watch part one. You really should. This bike has got some vibration, apparently, higher up in the rev range, and it is an absolute nightmare to start. Now, through some of the messages I received this week, people have said they shouldn't really be buzzy. Once you get on it and the revs get up, they're reasonably smooth, and this one isn't that. It does feel quite buzzy, high in the rev range. So there's that, and then I've got this bad starting. Now with the vibration, there's quite a bit of ambiguity, so I'm going to forget about the vibration for now and hope that it is in some way connected to this horrific starting problem. So we're going to chase the starting problem because we can replicate that easily. It's a thing. So the first thing we're going to do, I am going to do some scoping, which might make some of you happy. Let's fire up the old Pico. And the bike's here behind me on the bench with its fairing on after me riding it. Let's get the bodywork off it. I've got the battery on boil still. I think I'm going to, first thing we're going to do, and I've got no reason to assume that it's not a problem, I'm going to do a compression test. Let me stop waffling here, let's get the bodywork off it, and then I'll come back and we'll start picking away at it. Right, fairing's off it. Let's just see, because it stood for a few days. Let's see if it will start. Contact. I think that's the best it's ever started. But we did get that kickback, didn't we? Did you hear it? Let's try one more time. I'm going to do a compression test, is what I'm going to do first, and then I'm going to go after voltage drop on the starter motor wires. Because the battery, I've tested it a couple of times, it tests good, and it's been on charge. It does seem to be a little bit laboury. Laboury, is that the word? Cranking over. Laboured. Cranking over. Let's compression test it, just because then we know, not expecting anything, but once again, it's a piece of that puzzle, isn't it, that we need to fill in. Let's get a compression gauge, and we'll do that. Is that the right plug socket? Spanner? Socket or spanner? Ha! We've had that debate many times. It's a plug spanner, but it's not, it's a socket. This is a dual spark engine, meaning there's 2 spark plugs per cylinder. If I put a compression gauge in there and do a compression test, without immobilising the ignition, the engine will start and it'll fuck my compression gauge up. Ask me how I know that. Right, gauge. Some bikes, is that the right one? Yeah, some bikes will crank with the kill switch in the off position. This isn't one of them. So the way to disable it and stop it starting is to disconnect the, why won't that go in? The low tension side of the ignition coils. What is happening? Don't just pull the, there you go, operator error. Don't just pull the HT leads off and leave them dangle, because you'll probably be fine, but you're stressing the coil out big time, because it's nowhere for all that energy to go if it can't. It's got nowhere to arc to. Do you know what I mean? Put that there somewhere where you can see it, like that. Can you see that? Yes. Now then, coils. There's a plug there. That's those 2. Where's the other coil? You can see there's HT leads on this side, look. Where do they go to? I don't know why this is so fucking difficult to do. Where's the other coil? I'm blind. There's the other one, right fucking next to it. Crikey, not enough caffeine. Right, that's those disconnected. Right, back to the gaugeage. Can you see that? Make it expose a bit better. Right, full throttle. Contact. $150. What's the actual spec supposed to be? Higher than that, I'm pretty sure. Let me take, it's labouring the other cylinders, making it harder for it to spin. Let's take the other plug out so it'll spin a bit faster. Go again. Yeah, that's all she's got, isn't it? Let's go find the spec. What's that? Has it dropped a bit since I went and looked up the measurement? stand by. Oh, fucking hell. Stand by, let's... Oh, why am I struggling? I'm struggling because I'm trying to fucking keep you guys happy. It's going to fall out of there, isn't it, I think? Just remember, you don't have... Oh, shut up, ChatGPT. Contact. Okay, 150. So minimum 10 bar, which is 145, should be 111 to 12 bar, whatever that is. 60 to 174 psi would be correct. I wonder if that's a tell. You'd expect it to be sweet, wouldn't you, after a rebuild? I don't know what was on the... I don't think there were rings on the... If I think on in the estimate, if I think on in the edit, I have got a invoice from the engine rebuild. I'll block out the names and whatever and put that on the screen. There were some gaskets, I think, some bearing shells, bits and pieces. So it's definitely been a part. You wonder whether a valve timing issue would cause... Yeah. Okay, let's do the front cylinder. Yeah, bad valve timing was, or incorrect valve timing was something that was mentioned by you guys, which is quite possible. Imagine if it's got really low compression. Oh God. Put that there, can you see that? Yeah, sort of. Except it won't stay, it'll stay like that. Can you see it? No, it's out of shot. Oh, come on, Jim. Focus. There you go. Right. Try not to get my arm in the way. Contact. Sounds weird, doesn't it, cranking? Sort of, occasionally it's okay. I don't know if the mic is picking it up, but it sounds quite, not grindy. It sounds like the Sprag clutch is complaining. It's just a smidge over 150. So it's within spec, but it's right at the bottom end of what it should be. What was I saying? Yeah, it sounds weird cranking, doesn't it? It's got that sort of weird mechanical complaining sound. Not quite sure how to describe it. Okay, we'll put a tick and a question mark by the compression. It's hard to believe that the valve timing might be wrong, given that the engine's been apart and it was doing it before the engine build and after. But that's one of the things we are going to need to check if we start chasing our tail. Right, down here is the ignition pickup. I think, am I right in thinking it's a 3-wire? It's a Hall effect, isn't it? Yes, it is. Let's leave that for a second. I just want to do a test to see. I'll show you. Let me set the scope up and I'll talk you through it as we're doing it. Scrub that. I'm not going to use a scope. I'm going to use a multimeter. I want to keep this as old school as possible so it's more relevant to more people. I'm just looking. Just pulled this boot back. Let me get my torch out of my pocket. Get a better look at that. Look at the state of that connection on that starter motor. Not great, is it? Or not great looking. Anyway, the test I want to do is a ground-to-ground voltage drop test. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my multimeter wires, the positive and the negative. I'm going to put one of them on the negative terminal of the battery, and I'm going to put the other one on a ground somewhere close to the starter motor. I need to make sure I get a good connection. Maybe on here we'll find a good connection. I'm going to crank it and I'm going to see if there's any voltage on the ground. Does that sound a bit weird? So you need to, crikey, rabbit hole alert, which I don't really want to go in. So imagine, how do I explain? I think probably the water analogy is the best one. When you're trying to understand electricity and current flow and resistance, my brain always goes straight to water because I'm quite a visual. I think like a lot of mechanics, we don't have academic brains, we have brains that are more visual. So for me, the water analogy works. So imagine, God, I'm hesitant to waffle. Fuck it, I'm going to waffle. Electrical voltage, so voltage is pressure in relation, sorry, I'm teaching you loads and loads of you to suck eggs, aren't I? Some of you might not understand this, and it will make the test I'm about to do, which on the face of it would seem really weird, it will make that make sense with any luck. So imagine voltage is pressure, okay? Amperage, current flow, is the amount of water flowing down the pipe, okay? And then resistance is the resistance to the flow of the water. So if you've got a big fat pipe, you've got less resistance. If you've got a thin little pipe, you understand, right? There's more resistance. That's the analogy that works really well for electricity to help you get your head around the whole amperage, voltage, resistance scenario. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of my connectors on the battery negative here and the other on a negative close to the starter motor. I'm going to crank it, and what we're going to see probably is a small amount of voltage. Now what we're measuring, you imagine when we push the start button, the starter solenoid connects the starter motor directly to the battery through a big relay through the starter solenoid. Okay, the body of the starter motor is ground, so you need a circuit, right? So that the current flows from the battery, positive wire, down that wire we just saw underneath there to the starter motor. It goes through the winding in the starter motor, and then to complete the circuit it needs to go back through the ground. There's a ground wire on the back of the engine here, back through the ground, back to the battery. That's the circuit. Through the wire from the solenoid, through the starter motor, and then through the crankcase, and then back out this wire, back to the battery. Now then, if you have any resistance on the ground, and for these engines, I know this already, but this ground wire on the back of the engine here is a point of resistance. So imagine that water flow, sorry I'm going on, from the battery down through the starter into the crankcase of the engine. If we restrict the water flow where it's on this wire here, or pipe if you like, where it's trying to get back to the battery, some pressure will build up here, voltage will build up. Now you can only measure that voltage with current flow, so I'm going to make that connection, negative to negative, ground to ground. I'm going to crank it and we'll see what sort of voltage we get. Now the rule of thumb, in an ideal world you'd have 0 voltage. That's not going to happen in reality. There's a lot of current flow, you're going to have some voltage. I was always taught, correct me in the comments, and it's served me well for 25 years. Sweet spot would be 50 millivolts to 100 millivolts. That's where you want to be. That's ideal, under 100 millivolts. Up to 200 millivolts is acceptable. Once you get over 200 millivolts, you've definitely got return ground path problems. So let's get my meter out. Let's connect it up. Let's do that test, see what we've got. Because this thing is pretty laboured cranking. I suspect there's also, sorry, more waffling. I also need to then do a positive to positive voltage drop test. So from the positive terminal of the battery down to the positive wire going to that one wire there we saw going to the starter. That's the other half of the circuit. We'll do that as well, because you can also have obviously resistance in that wire. So we need to do the two halves of the circuit. We need to do the positive side and the negative side. The negative side is the one most likely in this scenario, because of this connection here, to give an issue. I did remembering an unfixable that didn't actually ever get filmed, and it would have been a fantastic video. It was a Triumph, what was it? I can't remember. It was an early Triumph, and the engine was on rubber mountings, and it had a stupid place to put it. The earth strut, which is kind of off in the way, the earth wire went to the back of the engine, and this bike had fucking been in like 5 different places. It had had everything. It had had coils, it had had ECUs, it had had, you name it, it had it, bar a wiring loom. And it would just periodically start misfiring and coughing and banging and messing around, and then it would fix itself and it'd be all right for a day. Long story short, short story long, it was that ground wire. And this test I'm about to do, it took me 5 minutes to fix it, because I did this ground to ground test for the starter, and there was fucking 4 volts on the ground when it was cranking. And of course the spark plugs need to be earthed. You know what I'm saying? It's all super important to have the engine grounded properly. Anyway, stop talking. Let me connect up my meter and let's do this test. Ground to ground voltage testing. So this is you need this test in your arsenal. Once you understand the theory and you get it straight in your head, it's really, really powerful test to have, because if you, that's a good example, say you had a connection block, imagine there's the other half of that connection block, and you suspected you had some resistance through the connection block, you could literally just back probe either side of the connector and do the same test. And if there was some resistance through the connector, so long as you had current flow, remember, you've got to, the circuit's got to be on, there has to be current flowing for you to get the voltage drop and get the potential difference across the resistance. But you can test everywhere to see if you, rather than ohming something out, this is a much more efficient way of, you know, looking for resistance through something, because it's more, what's the word? I was going to say it's more real, but that's really bad English. It's, you know, it's just physics. It's how it works. So you're measuring what's happening in reality. So stop speaking and do work. Positive and negative. Let's go to, you could do this with a scope and graph it if you really wanted to. In fact, I could be clever and I could do it on a graphing multimeter on here. Let's do that. You can just do it with a bog standard 299 Argos. If I knew how to work my meter, yeah, you could do it with a cheap and cheerful meter, it wouldn't matter. Let's put the scale to 5 volts. We got 0 on the bottom. What do we got for a time base? 10 seconds across the screen, that'll do it. Okay. Let's see what happens. So I need a decent ground, fairly close to the starter motor. Let's try that there. I could go on the starter, but the starter's painted. And then I'll go to the ground of the battery. Are we getting that? Is that in shot? Not really, no. And then turn the ignition on. And full throttle, so I've got the plugs back in so I can load the starter motor up, but I've still got the coils disconnected so it won't try and run. Oh my god, that starter sounds fucking awful. What is going on with that starter motor? Right, stop. So we've got, I shouldn't really do it this way. You didn't see that, did you? Right, hang on. Let me reposition. The graphing meter is great for me, but it's not really easy for you to see. So I'm just going to do this. And then I've got a min and a max there, look, and you can see it on the screen. God, that starter sounds like somebody's strangling a fucking cat. What's happening? Fucking hell, that sounds terrible. What have we got? Wowzers. 0.97, I need to look at that meter as I'm cranking. Did it really go up to 0.97? Surely not. Fucking hell, now the Sprag clutch is... Okay. Fucking hell, we've got a... I think the Sprag clutch has gone. Fuck's sake. This bike is cursed. I need to watch that back. Did it really go up to 1 volt? Because if it did, we've got a massive grounding issue. Let me watch this clip back so I can see what was going on. It went up to at least 500 millivolts, didn't it? Looking back at that clip. So we've got a ground problem, which isn't surprising because it's a pissy little ground wire and it looks a bit furry where it's bolted onto the back of the engine here. So this thin little wire is the ground for the whole engine and the chassis. Literally this wire goes straight to the negative terminal of the battery up here. We need to deal with that. A better ground wire. And then what the fuck is going on with the starter motor now? Let's give it one more try. Yeah, Sprag has given up. I think the compression testing of it finished it off. Fuck me. Okay. Well, that puts a bloody dampener on everything, doesn't it? I can't really go much further if I can't crank it over. And then if this is coming off to do the Sprag clutch, I can investigate timing, can't I? Get the belt covers off, do the Sprag clutch at the same time. Yeah. Uh-oh, it's not a very long video, guys, is it? I do apologise. I thought was going to be doing a bit of scoping. The next thing I was going to do was going to be to get the pico on this Hall effect sensor and talk about Hall effects, because I wanted to get a before and after before I disturbed it. I would have saved the waveform, and then we could have messed around with the air gap. Apparently there's some shims under there, somebody was telling me. Let's see if there are shims under there. There was some sort of, somebody was telling me there was some sort of recall back in the day, and the hell was that? When did you hear that? When I undid that, the fuel pump buzzed. What the fuck is happening? Yeah, back in the day, let's turn the ignition off. Are you getting this? Yeah, sort of. Expose it a bit better. Back in the day, this was a known issue. You guys were telling me. And there was some shimmage going on. Oh yeah. Oh look. Holy fucking smoke. Look at that. You getting that? What is that? Oh, I think I probably know what that is. I think that's probably the guts of the fucking Sprag clutch, is it? But it's very... That doesn't look very healthy, does it? I wonder. It's just shmoo because it's magnetic. Let me get a cloth. Oh, there's one, look. Yeah, it looks alright once you clean the shmoo off the end of it. And it's got this shim look. Apparently there were different size shims to get the I was going to say airbag. What? No, Jim. Yeah, the reluctor wheel. Let me see if I can get you a shot of that. See the teeth in there, can't you? So how do I measure? I guess let's zoom out a bit. Pretty minging, isn't it? Yeah, how do I measure that gap then? I guess I measure that distance with a vernier, and then I put my vernier against there and do the depth measurement, do I? It's the only way you'd, because there's no inspection, is there, of any sort? So, the plan, we need to get a Sprag clutch. We'll get this cover off. We'll fix the starter. Just wonder what the state of the inside. I think I'll get the starter motor off as well. Strip and clean that. Have a look at the brushes, etc. in the starter. We'll get a new ground wire. We'll also get a new positive cable from the starter to the solenoid, wherever the solenoid is hiding, and then from the solenoid back to the battery. Let's replace all that. I think you can double ground, well, people double ground wire them as well. They put from the research, the little bit of research I did, you can get another ground wire from the battery to the frame as well, which doubles up on the ground path because the engine is solidly bolted into the frame. So you've got the ground covered completely, and then thicker wires on the positive. Do the Sprag. While that's off, we can get the belt covers off. We can get a dial gauge on it. Get a DTI, and we can just see, we can just quickly measure. In fact, we only need to probably do either exhaust or inlet, just the point at which they're opening. Just verify the timing is, the valve timing is dead nuts on. Yeah, okay. I need to ring the customer now and say, you know your Ducati, it needs a Sprag clutch, because it shat itself when it was having its compression test done. Okay, I think that's it. Short little video. Sorry, you probably wanted more, but I thought it'd be a little bit more than this. I thought I'd be getting to do a little bit of oscilloscopage. Let's put that back on there. I'm going to fucking lose it, aren't I? Okay, over and out. I love you guys. I appreciate all of you. Sorry it's a short one. I've got lots of other stuff in the pipe. It's just not quite cooked yet. I do have a massive confession to make, but I think I'll save that till next week. Right, see you later guys. Thank you.